Right, I've just done a video on some new palms I brought, so if you haven't watched that, then I would consider watching that first if you want to know the palm selection. But I was about to pot one up, all these, basically we've got 7 palms here, about to give them a good pot up, and I thought, well, let's have a look at the mix I'm using and just the importance of labelling things. So labelling wise, in the past what I have done is took the stickers that, this is like the UK passport sticker. I used to just pull that sticker off carefully and put it on the next pot size up and then sellotape over it, but they do fade in the sun. I've been caught out a couple of times. They fade pretty quick if they're getting sort of bright light, and before you know it you can't read it. So I have writ out tags for all these palms, so when I pot them up I can just stick that in and jobs are good. And every up pot after that, then you just whack the tag in with the appropriate plant. So up potting palms we're looking at, in reality you shouldn't really go too big a size up, but these are seedlings and at this stage the roots should grow pretty quick, and I don't want to put them through the stress of potting them up into just a very slightly bigger pot, say from this size to that sort of size. That'd soon have roots come out the bottom, and you're risking damaging roots again by potting it up. So I am going to go to this size, so it is considerably bigger, but that'll keep that going for at least another year in that size pot, and that'll give it a chance to root that out and fill that pot. And on a side note as well, I just look at the size of some of these seeds. That's a pretty big seed, that one. That's a good 2 inches long and 1 inch wide. So that is the Raphia australis, because I didn't actually see the seeds because they were still wrapped up with the paper bag around them. And the outer fronds is a decent sized seed as well, remote germinator. Anyway, so the potting mix, I am outside but I'm in the shade, so I don't know how these palms have been grown, whether they've been grown in a greenhouse or whatnot. I don't know what sort of light they're getting, so definitely not be going outside in full sun. I will be putting all these in the greenhouse, at the back of the greenhouse where it never gets full sun, but obviously decent light all day and good temperatures. But let's have a look at the soil mix, because I've been asked a few times about this. I have done a video on it last year, but we'll do a refresher. I mean, people's mixes do change over time, and in reality you should do your research on each individual palm and see what their needs are, whether they want it dry or free drain and constantly moist, whatever. But there's a good general rule. When you can go with a standard sort of palm mix if you like. You can buy from the shops a standard palm mix, which is probably palm and cactus mix, but I mean, cheaper and easier to do it yourself. So this is a mix I tend to use, which is really sort of free draining to an extent. It does hold on to a little bit of moisture, but it does dry out fairly quick. So each individual palm you can just water as needed. So if you've got a water loving palm, for instance, you could water that every other day, whereas you've got a dry loving palm, then just water it once a week. So that's more about your watering schedule, I'd say, rather than your pot and mix, to an extent. But anyway, so the mix I've actually got here, like I say, it's probably changed from what I done last year. We're just looking at, I've done a quarter mix, if you like, so a quarter of each substrate, or 25% if you like. 25% garden soil, because I like to get some natural microbes in there, and you might get the odd worm and that, which is not going to hurt at all. So yeah, you'll get some good bacteria in there to keep the soil going, and, you know, natural sort of evolving microsystem in your soil, if you like. Yeah, so 25% garden soil, definitely. I've gone 25% cocoa coir for slight water retention but good drainage as well. That's pretty good for that, but again, there's no nutrition in that whatsoever. That's just inert. That's just a blank substrate, same as perlite, which is the next 25%. So perlite will, again, volcanic sort of, I wouldn't say rock because it's light as a feather, but natural substance, good aeration for the soil, and holds on to a little bit of water, but just allows it to be really free draining as well. And then for the final quarter, or final 25%, a good all-purpose compost to get a little bit of organic matter in there. You know, a little bit of feed for your plants to keep them going. Because like I say, perlite and cocoa coir are going to be inert, so there's no goodness in them whatsoever. So that'd be a good sort of standard base mix. And after that, I mean, again, if you've got a desert palm or something that wants really free draining soil, then you could chuck more perlite in, or a bit of grit, or even sort of some wood chunks, but I mean that they are going to rot down eventually, but I just it doesn't matter so much if you're repotting regularly. But bear in mind that even sort of hardwood wood chips are going to rot down eventually, and that might make it a bit more water retentive. So yeah, I mean, perlite is always the best thing, really, I think, because they're so light that you can, even in a big sized pot, for instance, that's going to make that a lot lighter. So if for me, I'm going to bring these indoors over winter, and if you know, sort of some sort of shelving unit with lights or whatever, you want a lighter pot as possible. So I mean, again, if you're using grit or sort of fine stones, that's going to make that a lot heavier, so that's something to bear in mind. So perlite is for me the go-to, and it is, you know, you can buy a small bag, I don't know, 5 litre bag, and that probably costs you 10 quid in a garden centre. But I mean, it's a lot cheaper to get I think I've got a 100 litre bag, and I've done a video on it again last year. 100 litre bag from Amazon, so free delivery as well, and I think that's 20 quid. It's probably gone up a bit this year, but I mean, that's the cheapest way you're going to buy perlite, and especially if you get through a lot of it, that'd be the way to go. So that is the potting mix we're using, and you can see it is quite nice and light. The only lumps that would be in it is from the actual compost I put in. I did try and break them up, but you can see that's really light. I mean, I can squash it together, and it more or less just about holds, but then it just falls apart again. So that's a good sort of base mix. And like I say, you can tweak that to, if you want a damper environment, put a bit more compost or organic matter in to hold on to the moisture. If you want a drier, you can always add a bit of sand, I suppose, or just more perlite. But yeah, so that is the mix I'm going to be using. These are the palms I'm potting up, so I've sort of lined up the pots next to the original pots they came in. So these 2 pots I'll be reusing for some of the smaller ones, and obviously we've got some bigger. These ones I'm going quite a lot bigger, but I don't really want to disturb them. They might be in there for a year or two, depending on the growth. So I don't mind up potting. I just have to watch the water. And then we've got the biggest one of the lot here, which is in a very small pot, and there are roots coming out the bottom, but they're all dried up and died, obviously. So that's going to go in a nice big pot as well. So yeah, lastly, like I said, there should be a reasonable nutrition in this soil with the compost, and that's, you know, most compost come with a little bit of feed with them. But I will be adding some fish blood and bone, which I believe helps the roots and feeds the soil as well, sort of a slow release mix. So maybe if you're doing this on a cold hardy palm, I wouldn't necessarily put that in at this time of year. You don't want to overfeed over winter or dormancy period, but because all these palms are going to be kept growing year round, I'll probably put a decent amount of that in, maybe just a handful, and give it a good mix in, and that'll give them a bit of slow release feed and get the roots going. And then I probably won't do anything else. I won't add any, you know, water soluble fertilizers. I do use a bit, but like Palm Focus or something like that, or even just seaweed, liquid seaweed. But I probably wouldn't even need to use that if I've got, like I say, the slow release that's already in the compost, and plus with the bloodfish and bone. I wouldn't actually feed these at all, maybe until next year, depending on how quick they're growing and whatnot. Anyway, so that is just a quick look at potting up palms, and we'll leave it at that. I don't need to ramble on too long, so I want to get these potted up and get them where I want to go, probably in a greenhouse. Right, thanks for watching.